Hey folks, my name's JR. Welcome to DIY Prepper Reloaded. If you're into prepping or just like to shoot, one of the most important things to have is plenty of ammo. And there's a lot of reasons why we should all try to have a healthy stockpile. First, ammo prices seem like they're constantly going up. By picking up what you can now, it'll save you from having to pay more later on. Then ammo shortages are way more common than they should be, and the types of ammo that we can buy could be affected by legislation down the road. It always seems like there's just hordes of politicians out there trying to ban it or make it so cost prohibitive that you can only have a few boxes at a time. And since this channel is geared more towards the prepping and survival side of things, having plenty of ammo in hand will also ensure that you have what you need for like hunting or self-defense during a long-term disaster. Now, when it comes to stockpiling ammo, one of your most important categories is going to be for your primary defensive handgun. This is what you'll probably have with you if things go sideways while you're away from home, and it's one of the ones that people tend to shoot the most. And for this, I like to break my stockpile into two categories: ready ammo and reserves. I consider ready ammo to be the defensive hollow points that I use for like concealed carry or bedside defense. And I like to have at least enough of that to fill my magazines. I mentioned in a previous video that 7 to 10 mags is a decent number for that type of weapon. Of course, having more is always better, obviously, but 7 to 10, it's a good baseline. Since my magazines hold 14 rounds each, I'd need 140 to fill those if I had 10. Then, if you can add 100 more rounds to that, it'd give you a small backup stash for keeping your ammo rotated, which is always good, or to replace any that you had to use. After that's training ammo, and this is where we start getting more into bulk storage. Hollow points, as we all know, are very, very expensive, so while I like to have some on hand, they don't make up the majority of my ammo stockpile. Instead, most of us are just going to use standard full metal jacket rounds for this, and your stockpile numbers will largely depend on how much you shoot. If you practice regularly, it really isn't hard to go through like 250 to 500 rounds each month, and that could come around to like 3,000 to 6,000 rounds per year. Of course, this can fluctuate. If you go to like a training course or do competitions, you may use way more than that, and if ammo gets harder to find, you may end up shooting a lot less. And in all honesty, there's also a lot of folks out there that can't go out and shoot each month because of cost. So a more budget-friendly approach may be to keep like 500 rounds on hand for practice, along with a reserve stash of 1,000 rounds. You could set up those 1,000 rounds for long-term storage and rotate through the other 500, just replacing them as needed. But if cost is a big concern for you when you're shopping for ammo, you should definitely check out Bullet Scout. It's a new ammo search engine that's been set up to be sort of an improvement over similar services out there, and I also like to thank them for supporting the channel. So when you get on the website, you see that they have most of the common calibers right on the homepage, along with links for a full list if you're looking for something else. I'm just going to click on 9mm Lugers since that's what I tend to shoot the most, and when I do that, Bullet Scout gives me a list of different types of 9mm ammo. Right now it's set to show results by product, and I kind of like that. I'm going to scroll down to the Federal Champion 9mm since that's been one of my main go-tos since I started shooting. When you click on Preview Top Offers, it'll show you who's selling it, how many rounds they're selling, the item cost, and total cost, which also includes shipping. The little blue eye next to rounds will tell you how many units you need to buy from that vendor in order to get free shipping and a lower cost per round, and that's great for bulk buyers. Bullet Scout also has a color-coded badge system. If there's a green check mark, then Bullet Scout's verified the price. Yellow or caution means that the shipping cost may not be accurate, and then red means that they weren't able to determine the shipping price. And having that can save you a lot of time since you won't have to go onto each website, add items to the cart, and enter your address and zip code just to get an accurate price. Then you can also choose to show results by listings rather than have all the individual products grouped together. That's useful if you're just mainly concerned about getting the lowest overall price rather than finding the lowest price on a specific type of ammo. So if you're somebody like me and you like to stick to one or two brands, you want to search by products, and if you're not picky, searching by listings may be the way to go. Another really cool thing that Bullet Scout has going on right now is a giveaway where you could win a pallet of 9mm ammo. That comes to around 80,000 rounds, which is basically a lifetime supply of the stuff. To enter, just provide your name and email address. You do have to be 21 or older to enter though, and you can find the rest of the rules for that on their website. Next up, we have primary defensive rifles. For most preppers, that's going to be something like an AR-15 in 5.56 or 223 or an AK in 7.62x39. These rifles are the backbone of many survival setups since they're versatile, accurate, and can be used for both defense and hunting. And stockpiling ammo for these can be handled very similarly to what we talked about for primary defensive handguns. Most loadouts, like older Alice rigs or newer stuff with like plate carriers, they're going to have 7 mags, 1 in the gun and 6 in pouches. With 30 round mags, that's 210 rounds total at an absolute bare minimum. Everyone should have enough ammo to fill those mags twice. However, that doesn't take into consideration practice or reserves, and that's a pretty big problem. How big your practice stockpile is will depend on your budget and how often you shoot. Like with defensive handguns, having 1,000 rounds in reserves and 500 rounds that you rotate through when practicing is going to be a lot more doable than having 5,000 or 6,000 rounds on hand. Using Bullet Scout, I could get 1,000 rounds of M193 for around $450. Of course, that isn't cheap, but it may be a better option than buying your 25th gun that you only have 50 rounds for. And then you could always get a little bit each paycheck, which is what a lot of us still do. But with that, you're going to be more vulnerable to sudden shortages and price increases. After that, we have hunting ammo, starting with 22 long rifle. This is one of the best calibers to stockpile since it's cheap, lightweight, easy to store, and works well for training and small game hunting. For this, I think 2,000 to 5,000 rounds is a good number to shoot for, but before you buy anything in bulk, make sure that it'll feed reliably in your gun. If you're using a bolt action, this isn't too big of a deal, but it can be a problem if you have a semi-auto like a Ruger 1022. Some of the cheaper stuff doesn't feed reliably. Then, along those same lines, pellet guns can be useful for a lot of the same things. You can get 5,000 cheapies for around $100, but just make sure that your pellet gun can shoot them accurately. That can be an issue for some of them. And if you're going to depend on a pellet gun, you may want to have an extra one on hand since they tend to break down a little more often than actual firearms do just because of the way that they're made. Next up is long range rifle ammunition, which is going to be calibers like 308, 30-06, and 7 mag. And those are going to be used in either like a bolt action gun or larger semi-auto. Rifles in these calibers have significantly more power than mid-sized cartridges like 223 and are ideal for hunting animals like deer and elk. Then they're also useful for other things like perimeter defense or engaging threats at longer distances. Now, most people, myself included, don't shoot these nearly as often as we do like ARs or pistols. The rounds usually have more recoil, especially if you're dealing with like the big belted magnums, and they're a lot more expensive. Folks around here usually just use them for like deer hunting. They'll shoot a few rounds to make sure that their gun is somewhat sighted in, and a couple more after that if a deer is dumb enough to walk in front of them. So, unless somebody's into long-range target shooting as a hobby, the average person may not even shoot a box of it each year. Because of that, around 500 rounds will be sufficient for most people, but even that's gonna be pretty stinking expensive. For my needs, I reload. I have a 7 mag, so ammo for that is well over $1 per round, but since I have a stash of brass, it's a lot cheaper to store the other components and just put everything together myself. After that, shotgun ammo, and this one's a little trickier since there are so many different types of shotgun shells out there. Just for simplicity's sake though, around 1,000 rounds of birdshot and 250 rounds of either buckshot or slugs or some combination of that would probably be a good number, but you'll want more than that if you do like a lot of bird hunting. My shotguns don't see a whole lot of use, so I really don't invest a whole lot of money in them, just to be honest. Then one more type of ammo I want to cover today is what you'd use in secondary defensive handguns. And when I say that, I don't mean safe queens that hardly ever see the light of day. Instead, I'm talking about larger caliber handguns like 10mm and Magnum revolvers. A lot of folks use those as woods guns, especially if they live in an area with dangerous wild game. Feral hogs are a big problem where I live in eastern Texas, but some of y'all out there may have to worry about bears or other really large animals. Handguns like those provide more power and better penetration, which can help you take down an aggressive animal a lot more reliably than something smaller like a 9mm would. Like with larger rifle calibers, most folks don't shoot those as often as they do their concealed carry gun. It's expensive and the recoil can wear you out, especially if you have something like a 44 Magnum. So with this, 500 rounds is probably a good baseline to shoot for. Like with my other handguns, I do like to keep some defensive rounds on hand, like I have some 135 grain jacketed hollow points in case I decide I want to use my Glock 20 for personal defense, and also have some heavier hard cast rounds for use in the woods. Having enough of those to fill up 3 or 4 mags would probably be good enough. And y'all, all of this is subjective. We all have different budgets and different needs. Some of y'all might be single and have a really good job, so dropping a bunch of money for 10,000 rounds may not be a big deal. And if that's the case, then good for you, rock on. But other folks may have a family and medical bills or are preppers who need to buy more than just gun stuff. They got to get things like food, water filters, and backup power. So at the end of the day, get what you think you need and try to do it in the most cost-effective way that you can. Try to prioritize which guns that you're most likely to need, which is probably going to be your concealed carry gun and a defensive rifle. If you can set aside some ammo, at least for those, you're going to be doing a lot better than most folks out there. And also, don't get so caught up with stockpiling that you never practice. A guy with 500 rounds set aside who shot 10,000 rounds through his gun is a lot better off than a guy with 10,000 rounds set aside who hasn't even shot 50. Now, if you want to see what you need to survive an invasion, then click here. Or if you want to see things that would totally ruin your ammo stockpile, then click here. Once again, I'd like to thank Bullet Scout for supporting the channel. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.